I'm Sarah, I'm an alcoholic. I'm incredibly grateful to be here, and for me it's truly a miracle that I'm celebrating or have celebrated 3 years, because over 3 years ago I actually didn't think I would even make 3 days, 3 months, you know. I was one of those alcoholics that, had just too far gone. I fought this disease with all my might, with every inch of self-will that I had in me. I could admit I had a drinking problem. I could not accept the full basis of my disease. I am a little bit nervous. It's amazing. I've just come back from a 3-year awesome trip overseas, and doing things I could never have thought of possible, like +3, when I went into the treatment center 3 years ago. Never even, I could not go to the shops on my own. I was so crippled by fear and every form of paranoia, because my disease is incredibly fear-based. So for me to go overseas and on my own and experience those experiences, but what I will say is that I latched on to my God of my understanding and my sponsor, and I do sponsor somebody as well. There was no ways I was going to let go of my connection to my God and the people that have given me the life that is truly beyond my wildest dreams. And I am incredibly grateful to be here. I hope that I'll hand over to the big guy upstairs for the share, because I have a habit of telling it as it is. I'm about as subtle as a kick in the crotch, out there like a sledgehammer. And I know that this is the 3rd time Tracy sat up there with me, and I'm sure she sits there and holds her breath for the whole 40 minutes, like, oh God, Sarah, don't say that. So the big guy's got this, and you know what's meant to come out comes out. And what in my past 2 shares, or even from my life story, and my first year share, my second year share, my perception of my life has changed. And that is for me the basis of, a big part of my alcoholism is distorted perception. And also this unsurrendered control center that I've got going up here, like I'll go to bed at night and the brain does not stop. Total unsurrendered control center, even some in recovery, and those voices, like go to bed, wake up in the morning, and they're all sitting at the bottom of the bed, good morning, Sarah. Let's start again from where we left off at 3 o'clock in the morning. That sort of thing. I want to control my life. I want what I want. No acceptance of God's will. Anyway, I hope that I don't base my share on the madness, because and I hope that I can share some of what my recovery has been like, and the gifts of sobriety. Though I will say this, okay, the promises, okay, it does not have a special appendix at the bottom, there that says, Dear Sarah, you are going to get Brad Pitt, Johnny Depp, a nice new car, a house by the sea, and a happy ever after life. It doesn't say that, because I actually had all those things. I did. I had all those things. And I packed a bag and walked out of that. And I also walked out of the lives, okay, this is going to hurt. Walked out of the lives of my children. I've given up for adoption. My children are the only flesh and blood that I've ever had or ever known. And I walked out of their lives when my daughter was 14 and my son was 10. That's what my disease did to me. I'll start at the beginning now. I was born in Zimbabwe. I was given up for adoption at 10 days old. I went into a family. My parents were that much older than everybody else's. I think they were in their 40s when they got me. I always knew that I was adopted, and I didn't like it. didn't like, non-acceptance from day one. And I have a younger adopted brother who I also don't like. I'm working on that one. That's work in progress. Yeah, we were like chalk and cheese, my adopted brother and I. And I was also brought into a family, and the first 7 years of my life were happy. But if I look back on it now, that little rebel, that little, I don't know what it is, alcoholic, was there right from the get-go. I mean, I'd throw my food away, a form of control. There's that control thing again. Yeah, and obviously I developed an eating disorder even at that age. You know, I wanted to control my little world. Yeah, and as I grew up, you know, my mom, my adopted mom, she got cancer, started when I was 7, malignant melanoma, and it carried on throughout my life until she died. You see, it's she died when I just turned 21. This cancer reoccurred every single year, just about. And she's also, now that I understand the disease, my mother was alcoholic. Brandy and Coke in the coffee mugs. Even while she was going through all the chemotherapy and radiation, it was her means of coping with what she was going through. And I was a thorn in my mother's flesh. Maybe I had, excuse me, fuck you written all over my face when I looked at her. I don't know, but it was totally unpleasant, our relationship. And I carried the things that she said for me. I could not let them go. In treatment center, oh gosh, 40 odd years later, I wanted her to change. I wanted a dead person to change. You know, back there playing God, and obviously no forgiveness. And what I was also really, really angry with was God. How could He do this to me? For one, why was I even born? I mean, I wasn't wanted. I was given away, and now into a family where my mother, my dad was an absent dad. You know, he was never really around much. He was working. He was trying to provide for a family that was dysfunctional, but he was trying his best. Yeah, lost kind of the plot. Yeah, I was angry with my God, and as I went through my childhood, right up until I was incredibly angry. It's not just anger; it developed into rage. Like, hello, thanks very much for nothing. What am I even doing here? And my behavior around that, just rebel. Don't drink. Why? You will be home at 12 o'clock. Okay, cool. Home at 12 o'clock. Everyone's sleeping. Out the back door. Scale the wall and off. Always that. Don't do it. Why? Burn your fingers, sort of thing. That was exactly what I was like. But it was masked with, I'm an introvert, shy, quiet, masked with, a little butter wouldn't melt in my mouth sort of thing. But, pretty nasty little piece of work. My mum, I got through that without dwelling on that too much. It was just a hard childhood. My mum died when I was 21, and a month later I met my husband-to-be, and he was going to save me from this. Married him shortly thereafter, and then followed 2 children. And I fixed off not only my husband, and then I fixed off my two children. They were going to save me. I was always searching, always looking for something to fix me. And if it wasn't my husband, it was my 2 children. If it wasn't that, I was big into gym, big into dance and that sort of thing. and I could not do anything in moderation. You know, the gym was not like, it was like 3 or 4 classes a day. The dance was like shows where you punish your body and you punish what you eat. You know, you don't eat properly because you've got to look good. All those things. I fixed off of them, and as they didn't quell anything. They didn't quell what I was searching for. Believe it or not, I also taught Sunday school, but I hated the little buggers that I was teaching. And I used to, I know Tracy laughs at me. Yes, I did try. But I used to teach the Sunday school and take them outside, and they'd be on the slides, and I think if I can just do to one of those little kids, you know, but I would come home and then, oh, God, that was awful. Because I'm also of that incredibly nervous disposition that big book speaks about. The big book speaks, I relate very much to that description of the alcoholic in there, which I never related to before. And I'll just praise it as I see myself. Raging egomaniac with incredibly low self-esteem, low self-worth, and crippling inferiority complex, masked with every single mask, you know, the clothes, the hair, all that stuff that did not work, because I tried it. Anyway, taught Sunday school and in the church, and okay, I could never get the happy clappy thing. That, you know, didn't work for me. I tried that as well, and it didn't quell that what I was searching for. My husband, just carrying on, my husband, he traveled a lot. We started off with absolutely nothing, Stephen and I, but we both worked incredibly hard. But then I took, you know, when my children came along, I wanted to be with them. I was a full-time mother for my kids. But even that, you know, I wasn't happy. And Stephen said to me, you know, I've got 2 names. My Scottish name is Morag. You know, Mo, you can never be happy. You just don't know how to be happy. And that is so true. I did not know how to be happy. Anyway, Stephen was always like traveling. And I was at home with the 2 kids, and Zim was imploding. You know, it got really quite bad there, quite scary there. But that's not, I used to latch onto those things. You know, that was the cause of my alcoholism. That was why I drank, because it was scary. You know, Zim, it's Stephen's fault because I drank. It's my mother's fault because I drank. I'm an alcoholic because I just am an alcoholic. That's it. And when he was away, you know, I became that reclusive. I had a vodka. I used to always think, you know, wine, pinky in the air, you know, that sort of thing. I would have drank anything just to get out of me. I had it stashed all over the house, you know, in the laundry basket, in the bathroom, until the stupid bugger washed his hair with the shampoo bottle that was filled with vodka. You know, I had all of that stuff going. And Stephen, you know, he'd say to me, Mo, you know, what's, and I would say to him, help me, please help me. He couldn't help me, and we got into that madness of alcoholism. You know, it doesn't just affect me, affected every single person around me, my kids, I vowed never to. I became like the person I despised the most, and that was my mother, my adopted mother. I'm never going to smoke, never going to drink. I want to end up crazy like her. And I became like her. And then it culminated in me, what brought me to my knees is, you know, I do have this sort of click, you know, my conscience, what's right and wrong. I had an affair. ego again. The guy was 10 years younger than me. He's at the gym, booze, steroids, and me, and spray on body paint. That's how I'd go to gym. And I had an affair with this guy, and I could not look my husband in. I couldn't look at him because I've still got this thing of religion. Thou shalt not commit adultery. I thought, okay, that's it. You've really blown it this time. So I'm going to drink myself to death. And that's what I did proceed to do. Back off there playing God. I'm not worth it. I'm worthless. And I did. My God. And I always say, Stephen locked me in the room and then carried me off down to see my perception has changed as I've worked these steps and as I've lived my life in recovery. He didn't know any other how to deal with this. He took me down to a treatment center in the Cape. That was my first time in treatment center. And I got carried in there. I was covered in bruises because I was a little she-devil when I was drunk. I'd run at him it was all his fault, run at him whenever I could actually get two legs in front of the other. Like fangs and, fueled with alcohol. A little she-devil. And the guy didn't know what else to do. Anyway, I ended up in this treatment center in the Cape. And what it did for me was just plant seeds. I was not ready to surrender. I was too busy blaming everybody else and too fueled with rage. They actually begged me, my counselor begged me to stay on after the 28 days. And I said, no, I'm going home to be with my kids. I was not even fit to be a mother. And she said to me, the first thing that you've put before your recovery is one of the first things that you will lose. And I lost my kids. I didn't lose them on paper. What is paper worth? But as I progressed, after I lost them because of my behavior, because of my non-surrender to and non-acceptance to this disease. Alcoholism. Alcohol's not the problem, it's the ism, the end part of it. I separate me. I separate me from my God. I didn't really want anything to do with the big bugger at the time. And I separate me from everybody that loved and cared and tried to help me because of my attitude. That anger, wow, it was crippling. Sorry, I'm also quite, when I talk, I do. It's getting better. I came out of that treatment center, I fueled with rage, and went home and tried to do myself in with, I don't know what I was trying to do, cocodamol. Whole blisters of them just to didn't work. I got a year's sobriety. This wasn't sobriety. A year of white knuckling it. And then I got Stephen thrown out of the house for abuse. Oh my God, it was terrible. And then, I'll cut the hell and the madness because it just progressively got worse. What the first treatment center said to me, and I'd sit there and I'd think, I don't relate. and I'm not like that. And they'd said, yet. And those yets started to happen. Over a period, I first went into treatment center in 2005, when I finally crawled in, totally demented and batshit fecking crazy, in beginning of July 2014. And how many years is that? God knows. Nearly 10 years of utter insanity as the progression of the disease continued. And it happens. I 4 times in treatment center, from that first time in 2005 until, God willing, my last time in beginning of July 2014. I went in, I'll just keep this one precious. I went into a treatment center in, I think, 2007, again in the Cape. And I sat there and, oh man, did I meet the guy of my dreams in there. Oh. Lucifer reincarnated. We were a perfect match. Yeah. Going into treatment center for any other reason than, oh my God. And after the 2 of us trotted into alcoholic hell for the next 5 or 6 years. And again, I blame him. He was a worse alcoholic than me. My God, we were both, and it's quite descriptive. 2 ticks without a dog sucking the lifeblood out of each other. That is what we became. And I always say it's his fault. You see, blame him. I was as bad, and to culminate me coming into the treatment center in July 2014, I was feeding the bugger anti-abuse pills and his orange juice in the morning. He needed them, I didn't. And my sponsor, I was going to the TOTI meetings, and my sponsor at the time, she was really trying to help me. She said to me, Sarah, you could kill him. And I went, yeah. I mean, how mad is that? I thought I was perfectly justified in killing the son of a bitch. Because and until I drank on it, it was the Thursday, I think the Thursday before I went into the treatment center in the Hill. I drank on the anti-abuse tablets, and my God, heart rate, on the floor, oh my God. And on that Monday morning after I wasn't really too worried about what I was doing to him at the time. I picked up the phone, and also bearing in mind I'd been in that very same treatment center 6 months before. I got carried in there drunk, and 3 days later, sort of like, now I've seen it, been there, done it, got the t-shirt, you guys have got nothing to me, thanks very much, I'm out of here. Royal wave, woo, off down the driveway. I don't think I walked down the driveway because I wasn't capable of walking at that stage. Anyway, out, self-will, woo, off we went together, hand in hand, for more hell. I picked up the phone to that very same treatment center, and the lady who answered it said, Sarah, you've got 45 minutes. Wait at the gate. We're coming to fetch you. They didn't give me any time to think about it. I didn't need any time. I would have run. I seriously would have run. And then those culminations of events, I actually was having asthma attacks. I don't get asthma. God was doing for me what I could not do for myself. He was bringing me to that point of total acceptance and total surrender. That breaking point that bring me down to my very knees, that I cannot do this anymore. And I went into, I actually didn't care about what clothes I had, what my hair looked like, all that shit. And I went off to, it was Tracy's husband that fetched me and took me in. And all those forms you fill in, I wasn't reading that crap, just wrote all over it, surrender, give up. And I am so incredibly grateful for, being, because I've been in and out of the rooms, and I never heard what or maybe my ears were closed, because you can only hear when you can hear, but they actually, shut up, zip this, cotton wool out, and I listened. And I thought, my God, I relate to every single person in there. I mean, the first month I would say, I was verging, I don't know what's alcohol brain, psychotic, and I hadn't really been drinking that much, like copium. I didn't need to detox, is what I'm trying to say, but alcoholically mad, my God, that scared the living daylights out of me, and realized I can't live with this, and I can't live without it. That total breaking point that I needed to come to. And yeah, just I got concerned in my first week there. Woo! There weren't that many women in there, and there was only one at the time. I think she was young. She was my daughter's age, and there's no shitting ways I was going to listen to this kid. But gee, I listened. You know, those concern groups saved my life story, saved my life. You know, I got told in there, I was so full, that victim, you know, why me, poor me, you know, God's done this to me. One of the feedbacks I got, you are the worst possible kind of addict. I didn't even take drugs. Worst possible kind of addict. Lying, cheating, stealing, all of that. Oh, you know, the life-changing point for me. And sit with those feelings. Never sat with feelings before. I've always run from them. I've always tried to quell them with gym, with men, with attention and affirmation, with clothes, with gym, dance. Woo-hoo. Sit with those feelings. And I'm incredibly grateful that I actually, you know, I'm arrogant. You know, I went through those 12 steps in 2 months. Everybody else normally takes 3 months. You know, that ego again. And then, you know, like my counselor at the time said to me, yeah, but the most important one is the 12th step, you know. I cannot keep what I have without giving it away. And yeah, I'm willing and surrender. And it was at times like, doesn't come naturally to me. But getting down on my knees and praying for God's help, you know. And it worked. And then when I got out of treatment center, because I actually had now some inkling of how much of an addict and alcoholic I am in behavior, I stayed in Scottsboro. I was in Toti. I stayed in Scottsboro. I rented a little cottage, and I stayed here for my first year. Gosh, it goes quick. I stayed here for my first year, and no, I can't. What I was honest, willing, and open. No, not. Yeah, batshit freaking crazy, but open-minded to most of Tracy's suggestions. And the ones that I wasn't open-minded about, there was generally a degree of pain that followed, quite a lot of pain, to bring me to that point of surrender that perhaps I should listen. Yeah, I did some really mad things in my first and second year of recovery. But what I did do is, yeah, those 3 things, and get my ass to meetings. In my third year of recovery, I did move back to Toti as well. In my third year of recovery, the most incredible, unbelievable growth. I found my biological mother. I'd been on a website for many years. I didn't want it to end up all over Facebook, but it ended up all over Facebook. She was looking for me, and I found her. She was only, you know, those questions that I wanted answered. She was only 15 when she was forced to give me away, you know, and yeah, it did end up all over Facebook, and I felt totally overwhelmed with the depth of the emotion that this brought through. And I actually went to Tracy and said, do you think I should go back into treatment center? Because I know this is all about behavior, and this is becoming too much, the pain. But I got through it, just carrying on doing the next right thing, you know, and I sharing at meetings, and I think, you know, why couldn't I have been egg number 2, not egg number 1? You know, huh? And I'd look at I've got 2 half sisters. I don't like women. Why have I now got 2 half sisters? Yeah, I do, because I have a deep mistrust of women. I'm learning otherwise now through the love of this fellowship. And I look at my mother and her perfect little world and my 2 half-sisters, but they're apart. I've got a connection with them. They're not my solution to my life. Okay, I found them, pick up and drink. Woo, thanks very much, recovery. They're part of my journey, and their lives aren't perfect, But I'm just so incredibly grateful that I've got that connection. I've got now a biological mother who actually never stopped loving me. I always felt that I wasn't loved, that I wasn't wanted, especially by women. And I also, shamefully so, developed coping mechanisms to, annoy women, and I do it deliberately. That ego thing, and I do it deliberately. Again, ism, I separate me. Though I desperately wanted the unconditional love that I've since found in this fellowship. Immense gratitude. And then, again, 3-4 months ago, I got this bee in the bonnet that, okay, I've got time. Okay, so, right, let's put it this way. Tracy and God derived this plan to bring me to a state, a state of more acceptance and more surrender, and sent me off on a little trip overseas. Though I didn't know this at the time, because I remember going to Tracy and saying to Tracy, I'm getting sick to death of hearing these 1-year wonder shares. Where's my 1-year wonder? 3-year wonder that I've been putting in all this hard graft. So hello, God. When am I going to be happy? And I also said to Tracy, right, you've got 2 options. Either go into Tinder and I find me a sugar daddy to marry, or you can send me overseas to go and make lots of money doing this care work. So, Tracy sent me overseas to that didn't work. It got all these people to write about references about what a caring person I am and all that stuff. Anyway, I went overseas, and what a journey! What an incredible! It wasn't, like read the small print on the website of the make 140,000 in 3 months. But I don't read the small print. I don't read that shit. So I went off to make 140,000, but what I got was so much more. The growth, the incredible growth that actually did bring me to my knees so many times, that point of surrender. But what it was more a journey of, I spent time with my adopted father. Did you know that forgiveness is part of amends? I didn't know that. It didn't click. And it sets me free, because I was still holding on to old stuff. I spent time, he's 88, the guy just wanted to see my perception of this has changed from my 1-year share to my 2-year share, distorted perception, the disease of alcoholism. And I spent time with my dad, and it was awesome. And in that as well, my ex-husband asked me to help with my son's passport, so I turned down a British passport for my son. So I turned down work, and I took the time off to help get my son this British passport. And then in that, I have no regrets in my choice. In that, my relationship with my ex-husband, forgiveness, unconditional love. Okay, I'm not that spiritual, I'm still getting there. But he's not a mad bastard anymore. He's not a big, all those bad words, we'll cut that out. But I got on with my ex-husband, and I helped my son, get a British passport. It was a journey of amends. And I also, I did go, I would sit and watch the TV about the alcohol and drug addiction problems in Scotland. That was where I was more based. And I think, okay, so God sent me over here to save all of these addicts, that ego. And this little voice would say, well, you won't be saving nobody unless you get your ass to a meeting. And I did. And the love, they asked me to share this group in Scotland. And the love, I don't know these people, but the love that, I got gifts for my share, and love and hugs and unconditional love that I have been searching for my whole life, and acceptance. And I was going through stuff at the time, and I didn't want to go and share. I'd rather have swallowed nails than go and share. Said to Tracy, I generally get one-liners back. Shoots the wind right out of my sails. So I shared. And incredibly grateful that I did. And I'll just end on this. I was doing palliative care work, and part of the course was palliative care and end-of-life care, and how these people, they're coming to the end of their lives, their functions are shutting down, and they're desperately grasping for this spirituality, not religion, spirituality, a connection with their God. And, we were getting trained on how to reach out, and I thought, I'll be quite good at that. Always that flipping ego. But I thought, I had to take this road of spiritual road. I had to find this connection with my God, because I tried everything else, and, like I'm in my 40s. I had to. And now, and after 3 years, it's because I want to, do this spiritual journey. And as it carries on, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm actually blessed, and I'm grateful that I can live however many more years God's got planned for me on earth, living the spiritual way of life, as opposed to 1 or 2 weeks before I'm dead, crippled. I don't know, that just hit home for me. And the immense gratitude of what I thought was the worst possible thing. I don't want to be a bloody alcoholic, and I fought it. It's turning out to be the best possible thing. And I am so incredibly grateful. Okay, that's enough. Well, but it's from the heart, and I wouldn't want it any other way. And my children, the divide that I put between my children, I can actually sit and talk on the WhatsApp call to my daughter for like an hour, and that I'd severed all of that. I'd broken all of that. I'm Sarah, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here, and thank you for letting me share.